Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm someone who believes that rules should be followed by everyone, including the people who make them. That's how I ended up in a standoff with my manager a few years ago when I was working at a mid-sized marketing firm. My manager, let's call her the punctuality police, was obsessed with people arriving early to work. And I don't mean a couple of minutes early. She wanted everyone at their desks, computers on, ready to work at least 15 minutes before our official start time. The problem? We weren't getting paid for those extra 15 minutes. If you're on time, you are late, became her daily mantra, delivered with the smug authority of someone who believed she was teaching us an important life lesson. Every morning meeting began the same way. The punctuality police would greet us while pointing out that some people were cutting it close again. She'd remind everyone that arriving at 9 o'clock meant we were already behind. When I questioned her by noting that our shift officially started at 9 o'clock, she would say that 9 o'clock was when work began and we should be settled in and ready to go by then, not just walking through the door. The worst part was the public shaming. If someone arrived right at 9 o'clock, she'd make comments loud enough for everyone to hear. She would announce their arrival sarcastically, saying they had decided to grace us with their presence exactly on time and how nice it must be to cut it so close. One brave co-worker tried reasoning with her. They told her that the bus schedule only got them here 5 minutes before start time and they'd have to take an earlier bus and arrive 40 minutes early to meet her expectations. The punctuality police told them to take an earlier bus because that's what committed employees do. After a couple months of this, I decided to address the elephant in the room during one of our team meetings. I asked if the 15 minutes we were required to be early would be added to our timesheets. The punctuality police laughed as if I'd told a joke. She said we weren't working during that time, we were preparing to work. When I pointed out that we were required to be on company premises at our desks, she dismissed this by saying it was just being professional, then asked if we got paid to put on work clothes in the morning. The entire room went quiet. A few co-workers looked down at their notebooks, avoiding eye contact. Others shot me looks, but nobody backed me up. They were all too afraid of becoming her next target. That's when I decided to comply with her rule, maliciously. The next day, I arrived 30 minutes early. I went straight to my computer, logged in, and immediately clocked in on our digital timesheet system. Every minute we worked was automatically recorded, and as an hourly employee, I was allowed to be paid for all time worked according to company policy. I did the same thing the next day, and the day after that. A week went by before she noticed a change in my routine. The punctuality police told me she'd noticed I'd been arriving extremely early lately. I told her I had taken her advice to heart. I reminded her that she always said 15 minutes early was the bare minimum, and I wanted to show real commitment to the team. She seemed pleased at first until she realized I was clocking those extra hours. She told me I shouldn't be clocking in until my shift actually started at 9 o'clock. I told her that I was there working, checking emails, and organizing my tasks for the day. I said that was work time, not preparation time. The punctuality police became frustrated and said that wasn't what she meant when she said to come in early. I asked if I was required to be there doing work-related activities. Why wouldn't that count as work time? She tried to argue with me, saying I was misinterpreting her expectations, but I just kept playing dumb. I asked if she wanted me there but not working and whether I should just sit in the break room until 9 o'clock. She said no, and then said that I just shouldn't clock in until 9 o'clock. I told her that would be time theft, as company policy said we must clock in when we begin working. I added that I'd hate to violate corporate guidelines. I continued my routine, 30 minutes early, clock in immediately. Some of my co-workers noticed and started doing the same thing. A few even started coming in 45 minutes early and getting a head start on their days, all while properly clocking their time. About a month into my compliance campaign, the punctuality police was called into a meeting with upper management. I later found out from a friend in accounting that they had noticed a significant increase in overtime hours from our department and wanted an explanation. The very next day, we all received an email with updated arrival guidelines in the subject line. The punctuality police wrote that she wanted to clarify our start time policy. Moving forward, we should arrive at our scheduled start time. While preparation was important, we needed to be mindful of labor costs. There was no need to arrive early unless there was a specific work reason that had been approved in advance. Just like that, being exactly on time was perfectly acceptable again. No more shaming, no more if you're on time, you're late speeches. Some of my co-workers even tested the waters by arriving exactly at 9 o'clock and she didn't say a word. The best part came during our next performance review. She tried to ding me for not being a team player and misunderstanding company policies. But when I pointed out that I had simply followed her instructions while sticking to corporate timesheet policies, she had nothing to say. I still arrive about 5 minutes early to work these days, just enough time to get settled. But I do it because I want to, not because someone is trying to squeeze free labor out of me under the guise of professionalism, and I never clock in until I'm actually working. My son, who I raised alone after his father left when he was just 4, got engaged a few months ago. I was thrilled. His fiancée seemed perfect, smart, ambitious, and they looked happy together. I offered to pay for their wedding. It wasn't going to be anything fancy, but I had been saving for this moment since he was a child. We started planning right away. Venue deposits, caterer meetings, the whole 9 yards. I was excited to see my only child starting this new chapter of his life with someone he loved. Then, last week, everything changed when he came to my house looking like he hadn't slept in days. I asked him what was wrong and told him he looked terrible. He said he had messed up, but it was complicated. I told him that whatever it was, we could figure it out together. He took a deep breath and told me he'd been texting with a woman he met on Tinder, a dating application. I felt my heart sink. My son was engaged and using a dating app. I asked him what he was thinking, reminding him that he was engaged. He said he knew, but there was more to the story. That's when the twist came. The woman on Tinder wasn't some random person, it was his fiancée. She had created a fake profile with someone else's pictures to test if he would remain loyal. When he started flirting back with this supposed stranger, she showed herself and confronted him. I asked for clarification, making sure I understood that his fiancée had actually pretended to be someone else to trick him. He said yes, explaining that she said she needed to be sure he wouldn't cheat once they were married. When I asked exactly what he had said to this fake profile, he looked down at his hands. He told me that he had flirted, suggested meeting up, and hadn't said he was engaged. I sat there in silence for a moment, trying to process everything. Yes, what my son did was wrong. He should have said he was in a relationship and not talked with this person at all. His behavior showed poor judgment and commitment, but creating a scheme to test your partner, that showed a lack of trust. If you're already setting traps before you're married, what kind of foundation is that for a life together? I asked him what would happen now and if they were still engaged. He told me that she would forgive him if he agreed to share his location with her all the time and let her check his phone whenever she wanted. When I asked if he had agreed to these terms, he said he felt like he had to because he had messed up. This was when I knew I had to step in. Both of them had shown they weren't ready for marriage. Him by not respecting the boundaries of his engagement, and her by using tricks instead of honest talking. I told him that I had been thinking about the situation and had decided not to pay for the wedding anymore. He asked with surprise, reminding me that we had already put down deposits. I told him that I would cover what we had already spent, but couldn't fund a marriage starting on such shaky ground, adding that they both needed to work on themselves first. He told me about his fiancée's reaction, saying that her parents couldn't afford to help much. I told him this wasn't about the money, but about the fact that neither of them seemed ready for marriage. I pointed out that he flirted with someone else, and she couldn't trust him enough to have an honest talk about her worries, instead setting up a trap. I told him that wasn't healthy. He left angry, and I understood why. Nobody likes having their mistakes pointed out, especially when they impact something as important as a wedding. But I stood my ground. The next day, his fiancée called me. She asked how I could pull the wedding fund in, asking if I understood how embarrassing it would be. I said I understood she was upset, but told her that I couldn't support a marriage that already had these kinds of problems. She said she had every right to test him, and since he failed, it proved she was right not to trust him. I told her that if she felt she needed to test someone, she shouldn't be marrying them, adding that trust is earned through honest talking, not tricks. She told me I was just trying to protect my son when he was the one who cheated. I said what he did was wrong, but pointed out that what she did was tricky and they both needed to work on themselves before getting married. She hung up on me, and within 2 hours, I was getting calls and texts from her family members. They called me heartless, saying I was punishing their daughter for my son's mistake. My own siblings told me I was overreacting and that young couples always have issues to work through, but I held my ground. 2 weeks later, my son came back to see me. He looked better than before. He told me I had been right and that they had decided to postpone the wedding. I said that was a mature decision. He shared that she still thought what she did was right, but he had told her he couldn't start a marriage with that level of distrust. He said they were going to try couples counseling, but honestly, wasn't sure if they would make it. I told him that whatever happened, I was proud of him for recognizing that marriage requires more than just love. It needs trust, respect, and honest talking. A month later, they broke up. My son told me that during counseling it became clear that neither of them was ready for marriage. He admitted his mistake but wanted to move forward, while she kept wanting to monitor his every move. Some family members still think I was too harsh for taking away the wedding funds, but I believe I helped prevent what would have been a bad marriage. I didn't think I'd be the target of someone's cruel prejudice during my Wednesday afternoon shift at Joe's Family Diner. I've been working there for almost 2 years now, putting myself through community college with the tips and hourly wage. I'm not what society would call conventionally beautiful. I have a birthmark that covers part of my left cheek and eye, and I've had it since birth. Most customers are kind or don't mention it, and my co-workers have always been supportive. That day was busy. The lunch rush had hit hard, and all of us servers were running between tables, trying to keep up with orders. I had 6 tables in my section, including a family of 4, a couple of businessmen, and a woman sitting alone in the corner booth. She was well dressed, probably in her 40s, with perfectly styled hair. From the moment I approached her table, I could tell something was off. She looked me up and down with a grimace, as if I personally offended her by existing. I greeted her and asked if I could get her something to drink. She didn't respond right away, just kept staring at my face. When I asked if she wanted to hear about our specials, she finally spoke up. She asked if this was some kind of joke, questioning why I had been sent to her table. I was taken aback but tried to keep things professional. I said sorry and asked if there was a problem with her table, offering to move her if needed. That's when she told me I was the problem, specifically my face. She questioned whether the restaurant really allowed someone who looked like me to serve food. My stomach dropped. I'd dealt with rude comments before, but never so directly and loudly. I said I could get another server if she wanted, but she cut me off saying that wasn't the point. She told me I shouldn't be working there at all. She claimed my face ruined people's appetites and said it was unacceptable for someone so unpleasant to look at to be around paying customers. By now her voice had risen and customers at nearby tables were turning to stare. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, and I felt tears threatening to spill over. She went on saying management should know better. She said this was a family restaurant and claimed children shouldn't have to see my face while eating. I was frozen in place, notepad still in hand, when she reached into her purse and pulled out a packet of tissues. She pushed them toward me, telling me to cover up the thing on my face. She said I should at least wear a mask if I was going to work in public. She stood up and tried to force the tissues into my hands. When I didn't take them, she grabbed my wrist. She told me to take the tissues, called me disgusting, and said to either cover my face or get out of her sight. I was too shocked to react. 17 years of dealing with stares or questions about my birthmark hadn't prepared me for this level of cruelty. But before I could respond, I felt someone push past me. It was my coworker. She'd been watching from the service station and had had enough. She stepped between us and shoved the woman back, causing her to stumble backward and fall onto her rear end in the middle of the restaurant. My co-worker told the woman not to touch me and asked who she thought she was. The woman's eyes widened in shock before narrowing with rage. She began screaming that she'd been attacked, asking if everyone had seen what happened. She said my co-worker pushed her to the ground. By now, our manager had walked over from behind the counter. He asked what was going on. The woman said she wanted to call the police. She claimed she'd been attacked by the staff and threatened to sue the entire place. She pulled out her phone and actually dialed 911, ranting about being attacked while trying to make a request. The manager tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen. She kept talking, saying she was a paying customer with rights. She said she shouldn't have to look at freaks while trying to eat lunch. Customers around us were talking, and I noticed several of them filming the scene on their phones. I wanted to disappear. The manager took me aside while we waited for the police to arrive. He asked if I was okay and said sorry for what happened. I asked if I'd done something wrong. He told me I hadn't done anything wrong, saying the woman was out of line and mentioning they had everything on security camera. When the police arrived about 10 minutes later, the woman was still angry. She went to them, pointing at my co-worker. She told the officer she wanted to press charges against that employee for assault, claiming my co-worker had pushed her to the ground for no reason. The officer asked her to calm down, explaining they needed to get statements from everyone involved. The manager offered to show them the security footage, which clearly showed the woman grabbing my wrist and my co-worker stepping in. While they watched the tape in the back office, other customers talked to the officers to give their accounts. One customer told the police I hadn't done anything wrong and that the lady had been horrible to me about my birthmark. Another customer said how the woman had been screaming about me being too ugly to work there, saying it was bad behavior. When the officers returned, their attitude toward the woman had changed. The officer told her they had watched the footage and talked with witnesses. He said that she had been bothering me and grabbed me without permission, and that what she did was harassment and creating a public disturbance. The woman argued, claiming she was just sharing her opinion. She said it wasn't harassment to have standards about who should be working with the public. The officer corrected her, explaining that it is harassment when you target someone for their appearance and touch them against their will. He told her she would need to come with them. The look on her face as they took her out was something I'll never forget. She kept arguing all the way to the police car, saying she was the real victim and that everyone was too politically correct these days. After she was gone, my manager gave free meals to the tables in my section who had seen everything and gave me the rest of the day off with pay. My co-worker hugged me. My co-worker told me some people are just bad humans. She said I was beautiful and that they loved having me there. I later found out the woman was charged with harassment and creating a public disturbance. Several customers had posted videos online that went viral, and she was identified and lost her job at a local real estate agency. I still work at Joe's, and while that experience shook me, the support I got from my co-workers, management, and even strangers helped me feel better. For every entitled person who thinks the world should fit their shallow standards, there are dozens of good people ready to stand up against such cruelty. During my marriage, I had this running joke, or honestly, more of a desperate cry for sex, where I gave my wife a clone willy of myself every Valentine's Day. For anyone who doesn't know, that's basically a kit where you make a silicone replica of your own penis. I thought it was funny and kinda sweet. She never really laughed or used them as far as I know. Our sex life was practically non-existent. The replicas were my subtle way of saying, "Hey, remember sex? Can we please have more sex?" It didn't work. Every February 14th, I present her with another replica, and she just put it away somewhere with barely a reaction. But I kept doing it year after year, hoping it might spark something. I was trying everything to save our marriage, but nothing seemed to work. Our relationship had started out great. We met at a friend's party, hit it off immediately, and within a year, we were married. The first few years were amazing. We traveled, had fun, and enjoyed each other's company. But somewhere along the line, things changed. She became distant, and I became desperate. That's when the clone a willy tradition started. Fast forward, we get divorced. Messy divorce. When I was packing my things, I remembered the collection and asked if I could take the replicas with me because it felt weird leaving them behind like some haunted silicone time capsule. She just looked at me, dead serious, and told me they were hers now. I argued that they were nearly a part of me, but she didn't care. She kept them just to annoy me. So yeah, my ex-wife has a literal collection of replicas of my private parts, like trophies. During the divorce, we made certain agreements. I gave her the better deal on almost everything, the house, the car, even most of our savings, under one condition. She would never tell anyone about certain aspects of my private life, specifically about my history with sex toys and dolls. It was something I was deeply embarrassed about and didn't want shared with the world. She agreed, and I thought that was that. A few months ago, she got a new boyfriend. He's one of those smug guys who always brings up CrossFit in every conversation. Yeah, I get it, you exercise. I've legally met him a couple of times during exchanges of paperwork and belongings. Other than talking about CrossFit and looking down at me like I'm some kind of freak, he recently cornered me during one of these exchanges. He smugly told me that he was the man now and that she needed a real man, not someone who uses sex dolls. When I asked what he was talking about, he said she had told him everything about my little collection. She had broken our agreement. But it got worse. Last week, a friend of mine called me up. He told me that he'd heard something about me that he was pretty sure wasn't true, but thought I should know people were talking. When I asked for details, he said it was about me and sex dolls. Some guy at the gym was talking about it, saying his buddy who was dating my ex had told everyone. I was devastated. We don't live in a big city. Word spreads fast. My ex-wife had not only told her new boyfriend about my private life, but he had spread it to his friends, who were now spreading it further. I have kept my part of the agreement. She got the best divorce deal. I feel betrayed. I spent weeks depressed and have been through hell knowing that my private business was now public gossip. My ex-wife promised to keep my history a secret in our divorce agreement. Today I decided to do a little revenge. I sent her new boyfriend a message suggesting that if he ever wanted to see the full collection of my Clona Willies, he should check the purple box on top of the closet in the second floor bedroom. That was it. No threats, no drama, just a gentle hint. Just some hour later I got a message back. He said they were extremely gross. He did look, and he did find them. All of them. Probably lined up like some kind of twisted collection. I could just imagine the scene, him climbing up to check the closet, finding the box, opening it up expecting who knows what, and then coming face to face with a collection of silicone replicas of his girlfriend's ex-husband's penis. The thought made me laugh for the first time in weeks. I just got a message from my ex-wife. She asked what was wrong with me and why I would tell him about those items. I told her that she broke our agreement by telling him about my private life, and he told everyone else. She said that was different. I told her that she was the one keeping replicas of my body parts as some kind of weird trophy, and now her boyfriend had seen them all. I asked how that CrossFit was working out for him now. She called me disgusting, and I said that she was the one with a box full of her ex's replicas, suggesting she try explaining that to her CrossFit champion. She didn't respond after that. I heard through mutual friends they had a massive fight. He can't stop thinking about the fact that she kept them all these years. He is convinced there must be some reason she wouldn't let them go. Some emotional attachment she's not admitting to. Is it petty? Maybe. But after having my privacy violated and my reputation damaged in our community, it felt good to create some chaos in their relationship. They betrayed my trust and broke our agreement. All I did was point someone to a box that wasn't even mine anymore. A box full of items that were, in a very literal sense, modeled after me. Revenge complete. For some background, I'm 30 years old and a single mom to my beautiful 3-year-old daughter. I'm white and my daughter's father is a New Zealand Maori, one of the indigenous people of New Zealand. We're not together anymore, but I adore our daughter more than anything in the world. I have a close friend from college who I'll just call my friend. She's genuinely cool and nice, but her stepmother and stepbrother Absolute nightmares. Her stepmother is currently unemployed and living on disability after working at an Amazon warehouse. Her dad works as a truck driver, and her stepbrother has never been able to hold down a job for long. They lived in West Virginia but moved to Pennsylvania some time ago. Last July, I hosted an engagement party for my friend and her fiance at my family's vacation home in the Catskills. They were supposed to get married in December, but it got postponed to September this year because of her fiance's injury and their medical bills. Up until the party, I hadn't talked to my friend's stepmother or stepbrother. I didn't know them, but they've been following me, my family, and our friends on Instagram and Facebook. According to my friend, her stepmother was envious of the photos we posted of us traveling, going to restaurants, attending parties, networking events, family boating trips, etc. For this reason, her stepmother insisted they be invited to the engagement party so she could socialize with our friends, my family, and colleagues from the museum and university. My friend and I agreed since we didn't want them hassling her about it later. Some more background about the stepbrother. My friend told me how her stepmother coddled him his entire life. He was homeschooled during grade school because his mom didn't like that. The school disciplined him for bullying and other antisocial behavior. His mom got angry when the school raised concerns that he might have mental health issues and sexist beliefs. He was never told off by his mom but rather enabled by her, and she wouldn't let his stepdad discipline him for anything. Meanwhile, my friend would get disciplined for the most minor infractions. Because of this upbringing, the stepbrother grew up expecting to get anything and everything he wanted without facing any real problems. As a result, he has no real friends, no social skills, and no respect for personal boundaries. At the party, her stepmother and stepbrother seemed completely out of place. Her stepmother kept trying to talk up her son to my female friends, while he just seemed awkward and uncomfortable the whole time. Neither of them could hold conversations with the other guests. Later, the stepbrother started flirting with me. I tried to be polite at first, keeping my answers to his questions short. But then he made a horrible racist comment about my daughter, calling her a bad name, and suggested I should get rid of her so I could date him instead. I felt so disgusted and angry that I yelled at both of them to leave my family's house immediately. His mother became furious with me, claiming I was disrespecting her son, which I didn't deny, and demanding an apology. She started screaming at the other guests, who were also condemning their behavior. I called them out for being racist and classless, and they eventually left after realizing nobody was on their side and someone was contacting the sheriff's office. Afterward, they bombarded me and my friend with messages about their humiliation. His mother labeled me and my guests as snobs because she thought we considered ourselves too good for them. She demanded an apology, and both of them insisted I should go on a date with him to give him a chance. I blocked his mother but forgot to block him too. Fast forward to late March, Immigration and Customs Enforcement showed up at our family's home in the Upper East Side. His mother and him had reported my daughter as an illegal immigrant, despite her being a U.S. citizen born in Boston with me as her mother. I called my grandpa's law firm, who sent over a couple of lawyers. The lawyers handled the ICE agents while I provided the necessary documents. My friend revealed that her stepmother and stepbrother tried to get my daughter deported because they didn't want a non-white person in their family. His mother wanted me to get with her son, and they hoped this would somehow make me willing to date him. Instead, my family and I decided to take them to court. Our lawyers reported them to the Inspector General's office for their fraudulent report, which is a federal offense. My friend and her fiancé initially planned to cut all contact with her stepmother and stepbrother, but that proved impossible as she was trying to mend her relationship with her dad. Her dad was away from home a lot due to being on the road, and even when he was home, he didn't want to get involved with what he called family drama. He just told my friend to do whatever her stepmother demanded to keep peace in their family. This caused a long strain in their relationship, but he's now genuinely trying to set boundaries with his wife. I understood my friend's situation and accepted her decision to only maintain limited contact with her stepmother and stepbrother. She promised not to mention anything about me to them and to keep me informed of anything they might be doing. A few days after Isa's visit, the stepbrother contacted me again from a different number. He was angry my daughter wasn't deported and demanded I put her up for adoption or give her to her birth father. He repeated that they don't want a mixed-race child in their family and that he wanted my daughter gone before we could be together. I told him that any future communication would need to go through our lawyers, then ended the call. From different numbers, his mother and him tried calling me multiple times, leaving voice messages that sounded crazy. They demanded I speak with them, with his mother referring to me as an inadequate daughter-in-law and other nonsense. My friend warned me that her stepmother and stepbrother were panicking. Her stepmother was worried about being unable to afford another court case while living on welfare. The stepbrother remained obsessed with me, and his mother was desperate to find her son the perfect wife who would take care of them both. My friend's dad was frustrated with their behavior, telling them to stop and leave me alone, but they ignored him. Our lawyers contacted her stepmother's lawyer, who is also her older brother. He wanted to negotiate a settlement before going to court, so our lawyers arranged a meeting at my grandpa's office. At the meeting, me, my dad, and the two lawyers assigned to me met with her stepmother's lawyer, her stepmother, and her stepbrother. To his credit, her lawyer was courteous, professional, and seemed like a reasonable person. However, as our lawyers started discussing the settlement, her stepmother interrupted. She demanded I drop the lawsuit, claiming I was going to be her son's wife and should act accordingly. She told me I should be grateful her son was interested in me, since not many men want single mothers like me. Ironically, she herself was a single mom before marrying my friend's dad. She went on about how her son and I would give her a grandchild who resembled them, while referring to my daughter as an immigrant who wasn't like them. Then she turned to my dad, insisting our families should merge because we were alike. Her lawyer sat there uncomfortably embarrassed by his sister's behavior as he tried to silence her. My dad stated that we were nothing alike, sharing neither their views nor values. He emphasized that my daughter was his granddaughter and we had nothing in common with him. My lawyer reminded them the meeting was to discuss a settlement, and they weren't in a position to make demands. Her stepmother continued ranting about how unfair it was that she spent most of her life working minimum wage jobs before going on disability, while my family wasted nice things like Christmas parties, boat trips, vacations, and good schools on my immigrant daughter. She claimed she and her son deserved these things more than my daughter and complained about us flaunting our lives on social media without inviting them, despite including my friend. She added that people like my daughter had no place in her vision of America. Our lawyers asked what they hoped to gain from this meeting if not to discuss a settlement. The stepbrother declared he wanted my family to drop our lawsuit and for me to give away my daughter and agree to date him. In exchange, he would allow me to continue working, but my money would go to him since he would control our finances. He said he would be the man of the house and I needed to start listening to him. I responded by pointing out he didn't even have his own house, just an apartment with his mother. He then stood up and tried to approach me, but his uncle had to restrain him as my dad and one of my lawyers stepped between us. My other lawyer left to call security, while his mother began screaming at her own lawyer's own brother for holding back her son. A couple of minutes later, security arrived and tried to escort them out of the office. However, as they were doing this, the stepbrother broke free and tried running back towards our conference room, but was blocked by office staff. He then got into a fist fight with the two security guards and some of the office staff who tried to restrain him. He found himself cornered with his fists raised, shouting at the security and staff surrounding him. I told the office receptionist to call 911. When his mother saw the receptionist on the phone, she tried grabbing it away. I held her back while she shouted racist slurs at the receptionist. Realizing the police were coming, she grabbed her son and they ran toward the elevator, fleeing the building before the cops arrived. After they left and the police arrived, we gave our statements. The injured security staff wanted to press charges. We then spoke with her stepmother's lawyer, who apologized for their actions and said he only took their case because they're family. We filed for a restraining order against them, with all communication to be done through our lawyers. Because of the stepbrother assaulting security and staff at my grandpa's firm, they decided to pursue their own case as well. Even after the incident, they continued to send messages from different phone numbers and fake Facebook accounts. His mother blamed me for ruining their future, demanded we drop the lawsuit, and somehow get the police to leave her son alone. Her son threatened to put me in my place. Following our lawyer's advice, we didn't respond but forwarded everything to our lawyers for documentation. To recover from all this stress, I took time off work and spent a week in Mexico. After returning, I held a dinner with friends where my friend apologized again for all the trouble her stepmother and stepbrother had put me through. I told her I didn't blame her for any of it. She told me that she, her dad, and her stepmother's brother had been urging her stepmother to agree to a settlement since they couldn't afford a lengthier court battle on top of their other debts. Her dad had been paying all their legal bills, draining his savings. Last week, my lawyers met with their lawyer again, who told us that her stepmother and my friend's dad had decided to pay a settlement to end the case. In addition to my case, they were still dealing with the separate lawsuit from my grandpa's firm. The stepbrother had gone into hiding as he knew we reported him to the police. They had other debts they weren't paying, and his mother was now even more miserable than before. Because of this, my friend's dad decided to use the remainder of his savings to pay me a settlement, as they needed whatever other loans and remaining family savings they had to pay their other debts and legal bills. Life has finally started to calm down, but I still can't believe how quickly these entitled people turned my life upside down simply because they felt they deserved what my family had. My mother-in-law has given me enough material to fill a book. Let me tell you about two incidents that still make my blood boil whenever I think about them. My husband and I have been together for several years. He's a good man, but his mother, well, she's something else. She's always had an unhealthy attachment to him, constantly trying to control his life and decisions. She never approved of me from day one, convinced I was somehow manipulating her baby boy. The first incident happened in March 2017, a few weeks after a Valentine's Day disaster I won't get into now. I was at work taking an extra shift to help with our bills when my husband called me, sounding disturbed. When I answered, he told me I wouldn't believe what had just happened. I asked if everything was okay, and he told me that his mother had shown up again, pounding on the door and screaming. She had been trying to call both of us. My phone was off during my shift, and my husband had left his on the charger in our bedroom. In her mind, this could only mean one thing. I was keeping her son prisoner. When my husband opened the door, she barged in and started demanding to know where he was being kept. My husband asked what she was talking about, acting confused. She responded dramatically, asking him to tell mommy where I was keeping him, suggesting he needed help escaping from what she called a witch. My husband told her she wasn't making any sense. She complained that he wasn't answering his phone and that I hadn't answered either. My husband told her that I was at work taking an extra shift and he didn't know she had called because his phone was charging in the bedroom. She then asked if I was abusing him and offered to help him if he would let her. When he said no, she demanded to know why I wouldn't let him see her. My husband had to tell her that I didn't let him do anything because I didn't control him and wasn't abusive. My husband told me he'd had enough by this point. He asked her to leave and sat back down on the couch to resume playing Call of Duty. What happened next had me gagging when he told me. She bounded over to him like some prancing deer, sat in his lap, and giggled. His microphone was on, and his entire gaming team could hear as she pulled his head against her chest and called him her good boy. The act shocked him so much that he sprang from the couch, throwing her to the floor. His team was laughing as he chased her out of the house, swinging his controller like a madman. His gaming buddies still bring this up years later. That was disturbing enough, but the second incident was even worse. She tried to kick me out of my own house. In June 2017, my husband was still in medical school when he suffered a torn anterior cruciate ligament in his knee. He'd been going to the gym regularly, but the training caught up with him. When I got the call about his injury, I rushed to the hospital, still in my work clothes. The medical staff gave me detailed instructions about caring for him at home, maintaining his appointments, giving medications, massage techniques for healing, everything. My husband was given 6 months to a year to fully recover, and the injury left him deeply depressed. He decided to give up medical school. This decision was unpopular with many of his relatives, but it sent his mother into a complete tailspin. She freaked out. I mean, really freaked out. She started yelling at him about ruining his future. When my husband tried to tell her that he could do something else and didn't want to become a doctor, that it was her who wanted that for him, she immediately blamed me, saying it was all my fault. This woman never misses a chance to blame me for everything. My irritable bowel syndrome started flaring up just being near her, so I hid in the bathroom for 4 hours. My husband was put on a limited work schedule to make healing easier. He only had to go in twice a week to sit behind a desk at the dealership workshop. It kept his job, and I took on more shifts to offset our income. It left me exhausted, but it was temporary until he could resume his regular schedule. His health was what mattered. His mother decided that me being away from home to work and keep a roof over our heads was spousal abuse and neglect. She convinced herself I had forced my husband to drop out of medical school. A few weeks into his recovery, I came home from work to a shocking sight: a moving van parked in my driveway. My mother-in-law was trying to move her belongings into my house. I had to park on the street because the van was taking up the entire driveway. Inside, I found her screaming at my husband, who was sitting on the couch looking defeated. I asked what was going on and why she was in my house. She smugly announced that she wasn't going to let me ruin her baby boy's future, declaring that she was moving in and I was leaving. When I responded with disbelief, she claimed to have an eviction notice and handed it to me. It was just a piece of paper with the word eviction clearly printed on it. There was no letterhead or formal notice, just her words printed on paper saying I had to leave immediately or the police would be called to escort me out of what she called her and my husband's home. I looked at my husband, who was on the verge of tears. Torn ligament or not, he should have stood up to her. I was exhausted and just wanted to shower and sleep before work the next day, but I had to deal with this situation. My mother-in-law looked smug. My husband wouldn't make eye contact. Ever decide to let someone hang themselves? I called her bluff. I smiled at her, which unnerved her, and told her to call the police. She took out her phone and called them, spewing lies, claiming I was abusive and controlling, that I had purposefully injured my husband to make him quit medical school, that I was illegally in her house and refusing to leave. To be petty, I grabbed a beer from the refrigerator, walked past her into my living room, sat down, put my feet on the coffee table, which she hates, cracked open the beer, took a sip, and started flipping through TV channels. When the police arrived, I told her that if she was moving in, she should make herself useful and open the door since I'd had a long day and wanted to put my feet up. Yes, I was being extra petty. No regrets. She led the police in and guided them to the living room, pointing at me. She told them I was refusing to leave her house. The officer surprised her by asking if she was aware she was trespassing in my home. I replied that I didn't know how I could be trespassing when her home was on the other side of town, telling them this was my and my husband's home. The officer expressed confusion, asking if this wasn't her house. She insisted it was, claiming my husband owned it and wanted her to move in to take care of him. She demanded my husband tell them he wanted her to live there, but he remained silent. When she looked annoyed, I laughed. She demanded that I needed to leave. The officer asked for clarification about who owned the house, me or her. I told them that my husband and I were renting from our landlord and offered his contact information, pointing out that she was the one trespassing. She denied this, insisting my husband owned the house because he supposedly told her so. She demanded the officer make me leave immediately. The officer ignored her, took our landlord's number, and called to verify. After confirming it was indeed our home, he returned. He told us that he'd spoken with our landlord and confirmed that my husband and I were the tenants and she wasn't on the lease. Unless we said she could stay, she would have to leave. She looked desperately between me and my husband. He avoided her gaze. She pressured him to tell the officers she could stay, but instead, he quietly asked her to please leave. I couldn't resist adding that she shouldn't let the door hit her on the way out. The officer stated that was all he needed and told her it was time to go. That's when she went berserk. As the officer took her by the arm, she shoved him in the chest. He immediately grabbed her and told her she was being arrested for assaulting an officer. She began shrieking accusations that he was trying to grape her, screaming as he put her on the floor and handcuffed her. My husband and I watched as another officer came in to assist, and she was carried out kicking and spitting at the cops while screaming. She was charged with resisting arrest and assault on an officer. She only spent one night in jail and was released on bail after seeing the judge. She canceled the moving van and had her belongings returned to her house. She stopped speaking to us until Thanksgiving, which I wasn't invited to. Those few months of silence were blissful. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.